Can we talk as if we're not on the radio? Would you mind? Can I just ask how you're feeling?
Sure. I'm feeling exhausted.
Mm.
I'm feeling obviously a great sense of relief that he's finally announced that he's going. I'm also feeling a bit of uncertainty, bit of trepidation about what's going to happen over the next few months. I mean, how quickly is he actually going to go? Because if he tries to hang around, as he'll be tempted to, saying that he's got to be there until, let's say, October, he can cause a lot of problems in the remaining months. And this is obviously a very, very serious time in every way. I mean, I'm not just talking about the fact that our fuel bills are going to be tripling. I'm really worried about the global situation as well. I'm very worried about China, Taiwan, as well as Russia. And I think every day that he remains is going to inflict more and more damage on the country.
Because no hand on the tiller at all doesn't just involve aimlessly floating around until a new captain is appointed. It actually involves making things worse than they would be even with someone as awful as Boris Johnson still in charge?
Well, I definitely think, we definitely need to get rid of him immediately. What I'm worried about is that he may try to negotiate for a situation in which he hangs around until the next leader comes in. So it would be much, much better to put an interim leader in, to put in, even somebody like Dominic Raab in an interim situation than let Boris hang around. Because if he hangs around, he'll start reappointing a new cabinet. And knowing him, he'll probably hope that by the end of the year, everyone, or by the time the election comes around, everyone will have changed their mind and he can somehow cling on.
The procrastinate, postpone, prevaricate tactic that has served him so well at every other turn in his life. Why did he run out of road, in your view? What were the clinchers in the last few days?
I began to feel that he was in real trouble when he lost the chairman of his party, Oliver Dowden. So that was after the disastrous Tiverton by-election defeat. And that was the moment. And I thought that was striking because Oliver Dowden had been out defending him very, very hard. He'd actually done some very disturbing things. He'd gone to the United States, weighing into the cultural wars on statues. He was somebody who was very ambitious. He'd been a supporter of David Cameron and flipped very easily to Boris Johnson. And I thought if he's leaving, he really has, he's somebody who has sensed something. And I wasn't therefore very surprised that that was really what turned out to be the beginning of the 2 weeks. Rishi Sunak, who with Oliver Dowden was one of Boris Johnson's very earliest backers from that intake, then went. And I think in the end, that's what brought it down. I think the idealists came out against him quite a long time ago. And of course, 75% of his backbenchers, or something like that, voted against him in the no confidence vote. But what really tipped it were the more ambitious insiders who began to sense that their careers were not helped by sticking with him. And when that happened, he was finished.
I'm getting a lot of reports that Conservative MPs are very, very keen to refer to your opening point, to get this over and done with quickly and not to have him hanging around. Sebastian Payne at the FT is talking about countless Conservatives getting directly in touch with him. And I think Bob Neal, former deputy chairman of the party, has gone public with that request as well. The problem is, as ever, Rory Stewart, the problem is that we're talking about Boris Johnson. So all the smoke signals and writing on the wall in the world that under any other circumstances with any other leader would point very clearly in one direction. With him, it doesn't work like that. He will resist furiously to defend whatever he thinks is in his best short-term interest, never mind long-term.
Oh, it's extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary. I mean, one of the weird things is you'll remember that when he resigned as foreign secretary, he refused to actually leave the building. There were these incredibly embarrassing moments where the senior civil servant in the Foreign Office had to keep saying, when are you going out? Because everybody else leaves that day. The classic images, the moving vans turn up, one lot comes out. So, and in that case, he hung around, I think, for 3 weeks because he didn't want to pay the rent on a flat. And it's quite possible he's going to try to do the same here again. But it's really, I think what he's revealed in the last 2 days particularly, I mean, that's when it's gone completely mad. I mean, that's when, when you start losing your two most senior members of your cabinet, you start losing 30 other ministers and you're still trying to hang on. What he reveals is that it was such a central ego trip that he just didn't care at all about his party, about the Conservative Party, about trying to give it any future, keep it together. I mean, these parties are traditionally in British politics a sort of broad coalition of different people with different voices. And the Prime Minister was supposed to be just a kind of first among equals, a kind of cabinet government. It's not meant to be a presidential system. So really, somebody like Theresa May would never in that situation have tried to hang around. It beggars belief. I mean, I think in all the bad things that he's done, those last 2 days were among the worst. I'm not feeling at all inclined to be sort of courteous, dignified, more in sorrow than in anger. I just feel he's awful.
You've known him for most of your life. Is there a single scintilla of surprise at just how awful he's proved to be in the final furlong?
I suppose I couldn't quite believe that he would try to hang on in those circumstances, because I thought that he, with all the horror, had a sort of beady instinct for his own, himself. And I think it's just damaged him even more than his conduct in government. I mean, there's a lovely poetic line about King Charles I going to have his head chopped off. And Marvel says, and nothing in his life suited him as much as the leaving of it. And in Boris Johnson's case, I mean, it's the reverse. I mean, unlike Charles I, the kind of disgraceful time in government is followed up by a completely disgraceful exit.
Speaking of exits, what about you? People always ask whenever you appear on the programme whether or not you would return to frontline politics. It'd be a lot easier now than it would have been last week.
Yeah, so James, I'm obviously not an MP, so I'm not a leadership candidate. You have to be a member of parliament to be running for leadership. I think if I felt the party could come back onto a more moderate centre ground path, I think there are some very, very serious things happening in the world. And I would be deeply, deeply honoured to try to help if I could in some way. I think realistically, it's pretty difficult, to be honest, if you're not an MP. They're going to be filling their cabinet in a way that tries to rebuild different bits of the party. So my guess is nobody's going to be calling me, but I think that I would love to do it. I would love to do it, particularly if I thought we could rebuild the centre ground of British politics. I hate this kind of lurch to populism, in the sense that we're becoming like a mini United States.
In the meantime, you're keeping busy, not least with the podcast you co-host with Alistair Campbell, The Rest is Politics. Next time you record an episode, here's a little teaser for you to ask him. Who was the last Prime Minister to both enter and exit number 10 Downing Street via a general election?
Oh, that's very good. Okay, I'm going to do an emergency thing in 5 minutes with him. I'll ask him that. Thank you.